Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual journey continues today. It does. The journey continues today on February 14th, 2023 at approximately 4:25 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the same ones I personally use on day-to-day basis. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the exact same philosophies I personally live by. Now, before I get into anything, we have got to acknowledge Adam in here with the gold. Now I figure we have to start changing right now. To that end, now let's see if I've done this right. I'm going to pop something in here. Where is it? That one. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is the right way to do things or not, but since I'm doing it, I'm just going to call it the right way. And this quite literally is part of, well, jumping Jiminy. And of course, we're apparently going to have fun trying to do things. Here we go. Oh, I didn't like that much. Well, so much for that idea. As we can tell, things are not necessarily going to happen the easiest way for me, but we can continue working the world the way it's been going, or we can decide, okay, enough's enough. Time to change it. Question is, do you desire to change it in a functional fashion? Now, what do we got here? Oh, there you go. Adam's just saying here he's just pulling a turnpike to Edmonton from Grand Prairie. Make certain, especially in this kind of weather there, Adam, that you take your time and obviously pay more attention to the driving than you do to anything else. Okay, let's face it, there is no point in killing yourself trying to get anywhere. I've done that before. It doesn't work that well. But I think I'm going to grab something here. Now, while I'm dealing with this, there are things I do have to take a look at. Where is my dark green? Navy blue is not what I'm looking for. Fine. Grab that. Grab this. Yeah, I'm going to be working on these while I'm talking to you, but there's a reason for that. Now, you've got a choice. Okay. We can continue living our world the way it has been, and there's shadow in with the silver. I've lived my life in a very different fashion from many of you, but at the same time that I've done that, I've taken my life and gone, well, that sounded really bad. And Joe, we have you in here with the bronze. I actually have never taken my life. Well, that's not entirely true. The day I was born, I tried, and they sent me back. They told me I had things to do. But with that in mind, we can continue living in fear. We can continue doing things the way everybody expects them to be done, as in living in fear, waiting for things to change for somebody else to make them happen. Or we can turn around and we can go, okay, I'm living my life by my rules and with my expectations. Now, bear in mind, expectations are a great thing. You can expect things to happen. You can stay living on that line, or you can turn around and just make them happen. The call on that note is yours. Okay. And for obvious reasons, I can't make any of it happen without you. Well, nobody can make anything happen in your life without you. We can give you all the insight we can think of. You can get all the information that you ask for. And you're still going to have to be the one making it happen. Now, in answer to your question, I'm just going to show you something here. Because somebody's going to ask what the heck I'm working on here. Okay. I'm starting a new game. I actually shut down my game as I talked to you the other day about closing it. About closing whether or not to close the campaign down that I was running. Well, came to the decision I was going to do so. So I did. One phone call and the game was over. With everybody warned that needed to be. Now, in your guys' case, here's the question for you. Are you content with the way your world is working right this moment? Is everything going the way that you personally envisioned it? And if not, do you have any idea at all how to change that menu? Okay, I've got to go and blow this up so I can actually see things. What do we got here? Down the sideline. And we have, there we go. Shadow, in all fairness, no, not at this point. I don't know enough about them. I have done things, and I can't show you right now. With the owlbear I did just paint lightly over it to get a black and white mesh. I just painted over it very lightly and let the black go onto the tips and leave the white in the middle or whatever worked out that way. I'm still learning the techniques. Right now, it's just a question of taking a general picture and making it happen. I have started looking for horses, as we were talking about yesterday. And here's the one other little detail. Remember I mentioned you've got to make your own life change. If you're not content, you're the one that's going to have to do something with it. Well, I'm quite happy to say that my other half has started making things happen, and she started shipping things up here. Okay. Now, the nice part about it from my end is this just sort of solidifies the idea that this is going to come to happen. But like I said, we can live in fear. We can live as we've been taught. What has gone wrong? What is not going to go right? And how much damage are we really going to suffer? You can continue living in that fashion if you'd like. Personally, I don't see the point to it. But hey, who am I? The reality of it is this. As I asked you yesterday, have you chosen anything at all that you desire to make happen? Okay. If the answer is yes, this is a great thing. Okay. The reality behind it is that we have to look at the world and go, okay, where are we standing and is this the road we want to go down? Are you content living in fear? If so, carry on sitting and listening to the people telling you the world's going to end. Because I will vouch for them. They are right. The world is going to end. Okay. In several billion years, which probably means it won't matter much to you. The oldest of you, or more to the point, the youngest of you listening, may make another century down the road. Okay. Myself, I'm personally aiming at 80 years down the road, at least. Okay, because right now, at 59, I'm aiming at making it to 137. Okay, but I've always been known, I've always been known to set my sights really, really high. Okay, now, I realize aiming for 137 years is, I don't know, 15 years longer than the oldest recorded individual in recent history. That's just the reality behind it. It's up to you how long you desire to live. But, the reality is this. We're all going to die. The question is not how are you going to die? It is how are you going to live? And it's not when are you going to die, but when are you going to choose to start living? Of course, I guess hand in hand with that question goes the question of what do you consider living? Okay, just exactly what does that mean to you? From my end, it boils down to having enough money to actually not worry about my bills. And let's see if I can do something here. By the way, here's what I'm working on, guys. This is the newest character that I'm going to be running in the next game that's actually starting up on Sunday. But I'm going to see if I can do something. First and foremost. Oh, congratulations, Joe. I tried it years ago, and they've got some, pay attention to it. But remember one thing, and this is the key to changing your life. If you're seeking somebody, it's still the same idea. We got somebody that just walked through the door here. Philip, you are in here with honorable mention. Phil, I'm really happy for you, Joe. Let's face it, if you don't get out much, if you don't get out for whatever reason, then the sites like eHarmony and eHarmony, from my end, was one of the few that I did experience myself. Okay. For me, did I meet people? Certainly. The important factor, it doesn't matter if you're meeting over the phone, meeting over the internet, meeting face to face. It's still the same rule of engagement, as it were. Okay, be absolutely upfront and honest about what you're seeking, what you feel like. Okay, eHarmony, the nice part about it there, eHarmony itself has I don't know how they build their algorithm, but they do ask questions, and it's absolutely imperative. The one caution, and this is across the board, is be dead honest about what you feel, what you're seeking. Don't worry about whether anybody's going to think it's a little weird or whether you're being too stringent. Okay, just be straightforward and go, this is the boundary. Stand your ground on it. Because you start compromising your goals and your boundaries, and all of a sudden we have a little bit of a hiccup. Oh, I think you're a little early there, Philip, but hey, you might be on the other side of the world. I don't know. That wouldn't make much difference. Today is actually Valentine's Day, which does kind of lend into that neat little idea there, Joe. You downloaded the app yesterday. Okay, today is Valentine's Day. That's okay. I don't mind. The way I look at it, Philip, no need for an oops. I'm a firm believer. If you're in Canada or if you're looking and talking to people in Canada, Happy Canada Day works for me. Okay, now I'm a little twisted on that one because I look at it going, it's a day. I'm in Canada. I'm content. All in all, it's Happy Canada Day. And that's just the way I look at the world, not necessarily the way everybody else does. But yeah, eHarmony is one of the few that I look at and go, yeah, it's got some not bad ideas. The trick is, once you get to know the person, just remember, be straightforward right from the get-go. This applies to everybody you talk to. Okay. But it's still all just a case of getting to know each other until you arrange to actually get together. Now, do understand, and even then it's another ball game. But do understand something very important. When I talk about being blunt and being honest and going, these are the boundaries I live by. Okay, when I first met my other half, and she approached me with the idea of the possibility of it working, I came right out and told her. Okay, right out of the gate, I said, look, something you got to realize is I'm not moving right off the bat. Okay. And the other thing, and this is just for anybody getting into the dating scene, come right out and say, if you're looking for in the long run, marriage or common law, come right out and put it on the table. Okay. The reason being, by putting it straight on the table off the bat, you eliminate the surprise question of what's going on, what you're aiming for. If they're not looking for long term in the long run, then frankly, you're better off knowing before you put any time or any effort into it. Okay, that's just the reality behind it. But this is what I mean by it is time we take a look at what we desire and make a change. Now, I'm doing this because I desired to have my character for the game coming up on Sunday that we're just starting. I decided to have the character pretty much painted before I got underway. So, and it's one of these things I had to have a character to build anyway. So it was just one of the steps. Now I'm going to put something else up here as soon as I can. I've started putting together in the advertising and what have you to get my books actually in circulation. And again, the reason I'm talking about this is just a direct example of my going, this is what you've got to do. This is a tool that works. Now get this. I phoned somebody today on one premise, and the next thing I know, they've offered to actually get my books out into circulation out on the prairies in the summer. All I've got to do is have them ready to go. And I'll tell you, having a whole pile of books ready to go is a pricey operation if you're striving to actually mail them out. Because the cost of postage is just absolutely insane. Okay, but it is time for all of us to really look in the mirror and go, am I content with things? Am I happy with the way it is changing, with the way the world is changing for us? If the answer is yes, then absolutely stay on it. Absolutely stay on it. But if there's one thing in your life you're not content with, it's time to really take a look at it and go, it's got to change, and I'm the one that's got to make it happen. Now, how many of you out there are sitting down with somebody and going, let's listen and let's look and worry about how bad the world is and how often and how quickly we're all going to suffer and die? Oh, well, my condolences, very belated there, Adam. My condolences regarding losing your brother-in-law, and certainly to your wife losing her brother. Okay. Oh, now there's a trend. Now, that in one sense is a bit of a tragedy. You lost your brother right before Christmas, but you've got a choice. Okay. Hey, Ozzy, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality of it is you've got a choice. You can look at the loss of your brother-in-law or the birth of your daughter. Okay, this is the difference between looking at the negative side of what you're facing or the positive side. It's your choice. They're both sitting in the same place. Okay, the only question from my end, it's a little bit of an odd question, is, the timing of it. Was your daughter still alive before your brother passed, or did he unfortunately jump over beforehand? Not did they meet, because if he's that close to passing, meeting may be a bit of an issue. Okay. But it is time for us to really take a look at things and go, am I going to listen to the people telling me the world is going to end? Because they are right. Okay, they are absolutely right. The people telling you the world is going to end are absolutely on the money. It is. Is it going to end tomorrow? No, it will end today. But bear in mind something very much there. It doesn't matter how far down the road we look. When things happen, it never happens tomorrow. Okay, like, have you ever gone for coffee with somebody? Haven't seen them in a long time, so you say, let's get together for coffee. You get together for coffee. Do you ever recall anybody sitting down for coffee and going, "Hey, Bob, I am really glad you got together with me tomorrow. Thanks so much. It was wonderful meeting you. Wonderful reconnecting." Or, "I'm hoping to catch up with you yesterday." You're not going to do either one, in all fairness. Boy, there's a transitional gateway. You can bet your bottom dollar, and I'm serious on this there, Adam. Your daughter may not know it, but if your brother-in-law knew that she was coming, he may well have wished her luck on the way by. And I can tell you he did, but there is not a snowball's prayer in anywhere that I'm going to be able to give you a definitive proof of it. Okay, it literally boils down to a belief structure that I grew up understanding. Now, what I'm looking at, like what I'm working on here, guys, like I said, is just a character for a game that's up and coming. Now we're going to leave him sit there for a minute because I need him to dry a bit. Okay, now, question for you. We were talking about the horsemen yesterday. The war, famine, pestilence, and death. Okay. Now, I'm a firm believer that doesn't work all that well. Where do we go? What's this? I probably buried it somewhere. Here we are. These people. We have the other four horsemen, and these are the ones I'm going to be looking into. I just ran into some time frame problems, not the least of which was having to get some sleep today. Yesterday I got up at 1:30 in the morning. I was up until 10 o'clock at night. This is a good thing from my standpoint. Uh-oh, missed something there, Shadow. Well, let's just take a peek back up here and we will absolutely... Oh, I thought I answered that. You're referring to the washes, I presume. And just to be clear, people, this is why I ask you to put questions in all caps. It's not yelling. It's kind of waving your hand and saying, "Hey." But the answer to that question there, I'm just looking up here, Shadow, and you went, do you use washes on your miniatures? And the answer at this point is I don't rightly know what a wash is or how I would even prepare it. So that being said, the answer would absolutely have to be no. At least not that I'm aware of. Okay, the closest I get to it is that I use a light brushing on occasion to let the white show through. Right, once in a blue moon, I'll try and mix a color, but because I don't know quantities very well, getting a match to the color can be a bit of a problem. Let's get back down to the bottom here. Oh, no, I definitely missed that one. And that being said, Shadow, the answer is unequivocally, absolutely yes. You just have to pick the day. Okay, as long as it's not on a Thursday, I'm good to go. So absolutely, drop me a line, and we will certainly work something out if you know the day you'd like to do it. Because my schedule is pretty open as to when I can arrange things, when this show is on, obviously. So let me know ahead of time, and we will set something up. And absolutely, I'm quite willing to go on it, to sit down with you. That would be a hoot in my eyes. That'd be an idea. From my standpoint, like, I know what I've got, and I know what kind of financial limits I'm on because I'm waiting for income, for money to come in. the neat part about it with these characters, and I do encourage anybody to get into a hobby that you can work with. Something that takes your mind off the day-to-day annoyances of this world. Okay, very important from my standpoint. I'm looking at this, and whenever you've got something that you can do to occupy yourself, okay, to keep yourself active, to take your mind off the real frustrating annoyances of things. Okay. The reality of it is you do what you can. Now, as a friend of mine put it, the only way that I'm going to make any headway here, especially where it comes to the books and what have you I'm working on, okay, the only way any of this is going to happen is if I start going out and saying, here it is. Same as you desire your life to change. We take a look up here, just a fraction. And what do we got? Go way back up here to Joe, I believe. Just reading, which is always fun. Always takes me a minute to figure out what I'm looking at. Sure, and I can't find what I was looking for. That's one of the biggest problems here. But, in Joe's case, Joe had a goal. And if you're in the chat room, great, check it out. I tend to leave people's stuff to themselves. But you made a decision, Joe, and you acted on said decision. And that is how things change, by deciding you're going to do something and making it happen. Uh-oh. In my world, it really boils down to this. I have sat around and spun my wheels for way too long. Now you've got a choice. You can sit and listen to the people telling you the world's going to end. Okay, telling you we're going to suffer massive famine, there's going to be war all over the world, or we can get on the other horse and wagon. Okay, the one that says we have bounty coming through the door. We have abundance all over the place. We have an excess of all the things we really require. Now, do not get me wrong. If you're living in a world where finances are tight, telling yourself you've got lots of money does not mean go out and spend every nickel you've got. Okay, it means understand that as long as you're aware that you can draw it to you, you're in good shape. But it's so much better in my eyes to go, I'm in good health and my health is getting better, than it is to sit there and go, my health is failing. I'm getting old. I'm getting rickety. My eyesight is failing. You got to look at reality. Yes, you may be running into hiccups. The unfortunate part that most of us face is so many people tell you that the world is in trouble, that because you're getting older, you're going to get weaker and everything else. I like the way that some people choose to go, in a sense. I had a friend years ago, little early on the clocking out. He was only 19 years old, died of an aneurysm. He was dead before he actually hit the floor. Now, there's a lot of things I have not done yet that I really desire to do, that I really desire to experience. But the fact of the matter is, if I don't get off my tail feathers, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay? And that's the same with you. If you don't get off your tail feathers, okay, and make things happen, you're not going to get the outcome you're aiming for. Okay, it's just not going to happen that way. Oh, that's not a problem there at all, Ozzy. I'm glad you could join us. And certainly, whatever you're doing, obviously, and I know this is overstated, but obviously, pay more attention to your work than you do to what's going on here. I don't know what you're doing for a living, and I'm not going to go see and looking into it. But I will tell you, not paying attention to work, I've seen in many people's cases, that gets to be downright dangerous. Okay. So absolutely pay attention to that side of it. But you've got a choice. Okay. You can live with your eye on the back door and see what you didn't get accomplished. I'm looking at it going, okay, there's a lot of things I didn't get accomplished. One of the goals, and I better get my button gear on this one, I told my dad on his deathbed that I would read the Bible cover to cover. Now, I've gotten about a tenth of the way through it, but I probably have to pick it up to actually read the thing. That's just the reality of it. It's very much like the blanket I'm in the middle of making. Well, I'm in the middle of making it. This is not working on a blanket, by the way. This is working on a character that I do desire to have finished by Sunday. But the reality of it is this. Okay. Have you got a goal in mind that you're working on? Okay. And I do mean a goal. I'm not talking about one to get done by the end of the week. I'm talking about getting one done by the end of the year. And this is why I've got 12 things on my own list. Okay. Some of them I'm actively working on, others I keep ending up putting off. And the reality is, if you've got a goal in mind, you're going to have to be the one doing the work. You're going to have to be the one getting up and making it happen. The funny thing there's a lot of books I look at and call, I understand what you're saying. The reality of the end. What do we got? I'm looking at the. See, in all fairness, I found, and this is where things got a little screwy. Okay. I pulled a really neat stunt with this book. Now, bear in mind, this is classified as science fiction, science fantasy, depending on who you ask. Okay, but in the Yldrbacian Chronicles, I found a way. Now, bear in mind, this is science fiction, science fantasy. This is not a slight against anybody or what's the word we're looking for? Or a vote or a support of anybody. This simply, what I did was I took the concept of creationism and evolution and found an interesting way, at least I thought so, found an interesting way of combining them. Now, that said, when you look at the idea of being a creationist, I will tell you this. I'm an absolute 100% believer that mankind was created, was built on Earth, right out of the ground. Okay, I absolutely agree with it. Okay, now that being said, do I believe that we are destined to do anything? That's the problem with free will. Is your destiny is yours to lay out. Are you encouraged to do something? Certainly. You were encouraged, to get along, to work with each other, in order to get things back on track. Yeah, see, people have talked to me about the Urantia book, and personally, I haven't read it at all. Of course, in all fairness, most of the stuff that people talk about, if we're talking about reading something, or researching something, the odds are I haven't touched it. Okay, but I do have my own way of looking at the world, and the first rule of thumb is your belief is your belief. I am not here to change anybody's belief, except hopefully, if you believe that you'll never accomplish anything in life, hopefully I'll be able to, through our discussions here, assuming that you're actually tuning in on a regular basis, I'll be able to encourage you with the help of the people in the chat room that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to, almost anything. I would lay odds that very few of you will ever attempt, much less accomplish, flight without some form of aerial conveyance. Although that would be trippier than heck. Yeah, Joe's just saying, I did a full hour of yin yoga today on YouTube, and when the guy gone, it said to do the splits, spread both legs wide open. I did that. Breathe in and out. My back pain shot right up to my spine. See, it's kind of like that. For me, it's kind of like that idea of getting into the lotus position. I can get into the lotus position, but in the process of doing so, I'm going to dislocate both knees. Now, I don't know about you, but I find dislocating a knee is not the most relaxing, position to get into. I had a guy, he was beaking off about something, and he goes, I can put my leg behind my head. I looked at him and I says, yeah, I'm kind of like that. I can put anybody's leg behind their head. I'm just not silly enough to do it to my own, to myself. See, when you're looking at the Bibles there, Ozzy, I've got a copy of the King James Version, a copy of the Bible of Latter-day Saints. I've got the Teachings of Buddha, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, and probably a few others. But from my standpoint, it boils down to this. Okay, what you believe is that works out well. The only thing that I encourage people to do is to realize or to believe that everybody, no matter what your belief, no matter what your hobby, you're all of equal spiritual value. Okay, and my message to the world is absolutely, understand that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody, but it's going to take some work. This is not something that just happens overnight. This is something we are going to have to put the effort into if we're going to make a go of it. Now, I know in my world, things are changing because, frankly, I got off my tail feathers and said they were going to. Okay, now I was trying to sort something out here and I keep getting sidetracked, which makes sense given the way my brain works. Or on occasion, I wonder if it works. If I take a look at that little piece there. Okay. Oh, there's how to do this. We take a look at this one. Now this, I think this will work. Let's find out. That didn't work all that well. This is a little piece about this neat little book I wrote here. Okay, you desire something to happen. Okay, this is a children's story that this is Mr. Dreamcatcher. And when I first wrote it, the reason for it was I got fed up reading the same stories over and over again. Okay, Dr. Seuss, the Berenstain Bears, this sort of thing. When my eldest child was 2 years old. Okay. And what I did was I took a look at it and went, okay, I've got to get something else. So here's the other part. This is the yeah, there you go. And whether this is the right way to do things or not, I don't know. But, from my standpoint, boils down to this. If you desire your life to work, okay, if you desire your life to change, it is literally up to you. Okay, you're the one that's going to have to make it happen. That's why I'm doing things this way. And it's kind of a neat little setup from my standpoint. We look at it and going, okay, what the heck? If I desire my life to change, I can think about it. But like I said, I offer the tools that I personally work with. Okay. This is the reason I wrote this particular book. I actually rattled it off the top of my head. Okay. I rattled it off the top of my head for my son when he was about 2. And I kid you not, the reason I ended up writing it was because I rattled the story off. And I kid you not, the Munchkin would not go to bed until about a month before he turned 8, unless I sat down and told him that story that I've got right there. Okay. This is why I know it will catch the kid's attention. I've got a few other things I'm working on with it. But now that I've done that little bit here, yeah, I mean, quite honestly, I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. Like I said, if anybody really wants to go into taking a look at the information in the Bible, I will tell you this: the backbone of it is right, but there are some things that have gotten out of track from my perspective. Part of the reason for that is I frankly remember a lot of those ancient times. As in, I remember living in them. So when we talk about some of the things that have happened in the past, I don't have concrete proof. Of course, I don't have concrete proof about where to go. Just out of reach. Almost. I don't have physical proof about this either. But I did just get another 4 of the pictures in. I got to get a hold of my artist and finish off the 5th one because we're down to 16 pictures. So we are making headway quite nicely. Okay. And the other thing, going back up here for a second, whether you take solace or find relaxation in yoga, in gaming, in reading a Bible of any form, okay, how you find a way to unwind, to relax, to ground, that's your call. Absolutely, if you don't find something that's fitting, absolutely keep looking. I do not have all the answers. Rest assured, if I had all the answers, I wouldn't be here. Okay. That's just the reality behind it. Oh, absolutely. There's a saying that goes along with that, Philip. You can't see the forest for the trees. Okay. And what that really boils down to is get so focused on one item. I did exactly the same thing that some of you guys are doing. Okay. I got so caught up in what was going on around me, in those little things, that I missed the big picture. And this is why I was asking you guys the other day, and somebody in the chat room, and pardon me, I forget who it was, did corroborate the idea of taking a break, pulling the plug on the game I was running, and carrying on with life. So did I end up doing that? The answer is yes. Okay. But your life is yours to control. There, in my experience, in my belief structure anyway, you are not dealing with, you are predestined, or you are, you are meant to go this road. You are simply given options. Problem is, if you don't have another option, you've got a major little hiccup. I don't doubt that. Ozzy just says, I know who that was. I know them very well. Just because I like giving credit to people. Care to bring me back up to speed, Ozzy? If you'd be kind enough to do so. The reality of it from my standpoint is my memory, much as I will tell you my recall is getting better, it still really bites in a lot of ways. Now, that was a rude way to put things. Not quite as bad as it could have been. But I made a decision and you've got the same decision to make. Are you going to continue looking out the back window and going, I'm not happy with what I've accomplished this lifetime? You've got that option. But I really strongly suggest that you stop following that option and start looking at the things you can accomplish or the things that you've yet to experience. I mean the things that, oh, thank you so much there, Ozzy. Yeah. Ozzy goes, it was me. I gave up flying drones as I didn't want to race every week. That is, yeah. Okay, now that you mention, I do recall that. But yeah, I did close the game down. Told the other gamers I'm not closing gaming on Sundays down. I'm just not running my game anymore. Now, the one thing I haven't done yet is gone into my computer and gone, delete. Okay. But there comes a point where you have to step back and go, this isn't working. I've been hiding from the world. And as I mentioned earlier here, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's going to be out in the summer, and he's all I've got to do is have 50 books ready for him, 50 of each of the Birth of the Wolf Pack and and The End of an Epoch, which are the two novels. Those are the ones that I am really building on. Those are the ones that I have covered such neat little topics in the coming books. I've started touching on them in those ones. On reincarnation, on soulmates, on your twin flames, on your destiny. How do you go about changing your life and attaining the goals you personally desire to attain? Oh, Ozzy, I was watching a video this morning. Somebody took the idea of a drone, of a four propeller drone, attached it into a subcompact car, right? Turned the thing on and flew off with it. Talk about taking drones to a whole new level. Of course, I can see a problem here. If you've got that many vehicles going into the air, traffic control is going to be a nightmare. Now, granted, I look at it this way. If we've got people that are starting to get into the air, I know down in California, they are working on flying motorcycles. Okay. And you've got to remember, in the air, just like on the open sea, right of way has got to go to the slowest moving vehicle. Go and enjoy yourself there, Shadow. Thanks so much for joining us. And absolutely, drop me a line and we will certainly do the show together. But do enjoy the game. This is what I mean by we've got to pick what we're aiming for, what we're happy about. Are you content with where your life is going? That's the big thing we have to look at. Now, obviously, if you're not content with your life, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference to me. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference to anybody in this chat room if you don't do anything about it. I will give you as much encouragement as I can to go after your dreams. And I don't mean chase them. I'd like to hear about you catching up to your dreams. Actually attaining the goals you've set. Okay. This is the key to making this a better world for virtually everybody. Pick something that you do desire to accomplish and absolutely set your mind to it and get it done. If you simply are going to talk about not being happy and still not doing anything with it. And, okay, Joe, you've got one of two ways of doing it. The one question I've got for you is, are you thinking of writing a nonfiction book or a story about your life? And the reason I say this is because if you're writing about your life, start off by putting down major point factors that you can remember. Okay. And start fleshing them out. Kind of like putting a major puzzle together. You start without a picture. You start with taking pieces and putting them together and see how they connect as you go along. Okay, I will tell you, far easier to write a story from here than from your imagination. Okay, but it depends on the type of book you're looking at. Okay, if you're looking at a entertainment book, science fiction, science fantasy, mystery, whatever, we're talking a fiction book. Okay, the way I did it with this one. Okay, this story here, all I did was I literally started off. I figured it was built on a gaming system. Okay, so I started off in the same place that gamers usually start off, in a bar. That was all I knew. I knew it was post-apocalyptic, and I knew it was gaming based, right? That side of it. But I started off in the bar and just let the story tell itself. Okay, that was the easiest trick I used. That's the when it comes to the imagination, start with a starting point. You don't even have to know where it's heading. Okay, let the thing write itself. Makes it a whole lot easier in a lot of ways. Okay. Ozzy's just saying, he who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually correct. Yeah, absolutely. I use a slight variation on that. And then, I use a slight variation on that one, Ozzy. The one I usually use is whether you believe you can or you believe you can't. In either event, you're almost certain to be correct. And here's a neat little, just kind of a link for you. Okay. Now, clearly, considering this is all in print, and I only met you a few months ago, there is a gentleman, one of the main characters in this book is a gentleman by the name of Ozzy. Okay. He is a grandfather type character with a real nasty gun. For those of you that know guns, he's got a custom-made .460 Magnum carbine-length barrel. Okay. But he is a gentleman that is more interested in helping the kids and in helping people deal with things than he is in getting into a fight. Although, rest assured, if you're packing around a .460 Magnum and you get into a fight, there's not much fight left in the person you shoot. But this is science fiction, science fantasy. This is not a book on reality. Now, oh, by the way, just because I hear people say it's the obligatory thing, I'm not obliged to do anything, in my opinion, except to be absolutely honest with you. By the way, Yldrbac. Gee, I've got good memory, just really flaming short. Let's go back up here. Joe, something to keep in mind. When you're looking at writing the book, the title will come to you. Do not worry about a title. Worry about a working title just so that you can put things in the same file. Okay, it's that simple. When I wrote this one, and this is the one, and this is really the big job because this is one of a 12-volume saga. The first and second books are out. The third one I'm working on. But I started off in a bar, and here's the thing. With the birth of the wolf pack, in the first chapter, there is a hint of a fight. In the second chapter, there is a detailed conflict, 10-to-1 odds against the pacifist in the party. Okay, the guy that doesn't want to fight. And you end up 10-to-1 odds. 7 dead, 2 badly wounded, and 1 gets away in one piece. Okay, now this is in the second chapter. Okay, the way I figure it, now, curiosity, guys, but when it comes to writing, and this is something to keep in mind, Joe, especially if you're writing a fiction story. Okay, if you guys do me a favor, if you're a reader, how many chapters in a book do you, in an actual novel, do you get it and give it in order to get your attention so you keep on reading? Okay, that's just a curiosity on my part. Joe, that is exactly where I started. Okay, I literally started with nothing but a sheet of paper, a pen, and a hard surface. In my case, if I recall correctly, I was actually sitting at the dining room table when I started writing. Okay, it wasn't until way down the road when everything fell into place. Like I'd already completed Birth of the Wolfpack when it dawned on me that it fit beautifully on the back end of the storyline that I actually outlined in grade 10. Okay, so I mean, this is the reality behind it. But now it's a question of making things happen. And by the way, Joe, the other nice little part about writing a book, and this is one of the reasons why I encourage you to do so. When you can leave, people talk about immortality. Okay, when you can leave a book behind, or like my son did. Okay, when my son was 2 years old, he made this he was in kindergarten. My apologies. Kindergarten? No, he was in grade 2. There we go. Now we know where he was. My son was in grade 2 when he made this for me. And though you can't see it, okay, at least not well, if you can see it, he signed his name on the back of it. This is a form of immortality. Okay, when you write a book and you get your name on it, okay, when you do that, you have just become essentially immortal. Okay, I've got one book myself that was written in 1850. Okay, and this is just a way, because the real key to life is not how much money, how much stuff you can have. It's a question of what kind of world are you leaving behind? Did you leave the world behind in better shape than when you got here? If the answer is yes, you're on the right track, at least in my experience. Okay. Philip's just added in here. Jerry Seinfeld wrote most of his material on those yellow legal pads. Yeah. I did most of mine. Let me see here. It wasn't legal pads. Or maybe it was. Let me see here. If I go over here. That ain't gonna work. Of course, the information I was looking for isn't readily available, so I'm just not going to hunt it down that much. But the reality of it is, when you're looking at doing something, the whole trick on most of the pages in the Birth of the Wolfpack, and like in the Yldrbacian Chronicles, I look at 10 pages. Okay, I look at aiming for the 10-page mark. Okay, and the reason for that is because I like being able to see myself, if I'm trying to read something, I like seeing some sort of progress. When I take a look at this one, okay, at these type, the chapters are only a page or two long. But you got to remember, okay, with Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams, the whole book is 22 pages. Okay, but this is the one that holds the backbone to how I turn my life around. And again, it's one of these ideas that get the information down and, make it available. Okay, what have we got there? Hey, Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality is, in order to change your life, you can postpone it until tomorrow. Wait until next week. It doesn't really make a lot of difference, because the reality is, when you get started on changing it, okay, when you get started changing it, what's going to happen is you're going to be in the here and now. That is where you're going to be. Okay, because you cannot change it yesterday, and tomorrow will never get here. Because if you think about it, tomorrow, when you get to tomorrow, it is today. The saying I learned was, today is the tomorrow you dreamt about yesterday, and today is the yesterday you will talk about tomorrow, or more to the point, that you may talk about tomorrow. But in either event, the only time you can ever make a change is right here, right now. And this is why I'm saying, take a look at the way your world is. Are you content with it? Okay, are you happy with the way your world is sitting? If not, then it is time to start changing things. Okay, and that's just the blunt reality of it. Like, I've got this figure I'm working on, right? And I've got the choice. I can go, gee, it'd be really nice to have this figure finished. But if I don't get off my tail feathers and do something with it, it's not going to get finished. That's just the reality. So I'm looking at it going, okay, how do we make it work? Now, one of the important factors from your end is, are you content with your life sitting the way it is? Are you content listening to people telling you that the world's going to end, that no matter what you do, the world is over? Okay, if you're content with that, absolutely live your life that way. Stay on track with it. Personally, I got fed up with the idea of living in a world where I didn't have control over what was going on, where I didn't have some sort of say in my outcomes. Okay, how about you? Are you content? Okay, if the answer is yes, then absolutely carry on with your life the way it is. But if you did, or more to the point, when you desire change, it is time to pick up your tail feathers and actually make said change happen. Okay, like, I'm looking at this, and yes, it takes a little bit of concentration, in case you haven't noticed. When you're striving to change the way something looks. And it's funny, here I am, I've got a little figure. And this is why I say everything is a microcosm. They're all connected to everything else. Here I am changing the appearance of this little figure, right? But the other side of that is, I can turn around and I can look at my house and go, one step at a time, I'm changing little bits and pieces of my house so that it starts taking on a better appearance in my eyes. This is not to be done for anybody but yourself. Okay, and don't get me wrong. If you're in a situation where you're living in a place where other people are involved, absolutely do your part to keep things organized. That's just what I tend to call common courtesy. Sadly, in today's world, common is not the reality behind it. At least not from what I've come to see. But it is time that we really look at things and go, okay, how are we going to change your life? Not how are you going to change my life, not how are we going to change the world. We start with your life. Okay, if you're content with the way your life is, absolutely stay on track. If you're not, then it's time to start taking a look at everything that is not working towards that new life that you desire to co-create. And yes, I definitely did say co-create, because everything you do is going to be affected by the people around you. Everything they do will affect you. Everything you do will affect them. Okay. Now, we could take it to silly extremes, but there's not much point to that. So how about if we just go with the idea of, let's see what we can do about shifting the direction your life is heading, and let's make it into something a little bit more enjoyable from your perspective. Okay, This is the thing. When do we do it? Do we do it now? Do we wait for a week and a half? Or do we go back and sit down and listen to somebody telling you, you can't do it. You're not good enough. Okay. I will tell you, I mentioned some time ago that I will be taking my company and turning it into an actual publishing company where the only qualifier to get a book published, aside from paying for it, okay, will be whether it fits the genres I'll work in, which, by the way, will be most of them. I just won't deal in certain genres, and that will come clear as we go along. But I'm not the one to tell you whether what you're working on, like whatever you do, Joe, do not let anybody tell you that you cannot write well. Okay. Let yourself tell you you're not happy with it. Okay. And certainly get somebody that is qualified. If you're qualified, absolutely do. But if you have problems spelling, find somebody like I did that is absolutely willing to do the edit, to help you with the spelling, to help you with looking for punctuation issues. Okay, to make sure things read smoothly, to make sure that the story that you're striving to tell is internally consistent. This is one of the key factors to making a story work. Hey world, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality of it is we all have an obligation to one person. You've got an obligation to yourself. Remember that thing I mentioned about be true to yourself first? The issue of the good book was brought up a little while ago. And the reality is you don't have an obligation to even your creator. Your creator gave you, well, more to the point, it depends. Do you believe your creator gave you free will? If you do, then your obligation is to make reasonable choices. Aim for whatever your creator said that was what you were after. Okay. If your creator says the material world is the most important thing in the world, in existence, I'm telling you, he didn't start off with it. Okay. He started off, he, she, it, whatever, started off with a concept. And the only concept was, I don't like it the way it is right now, so I'm going to change this. Okay, and I did put those there. So I'm looking at this. Do we stay dealing on the issue of how is everything going to get worse? Are we going to have a major problem here? And it is definitely possible we could. Okay, I mean, it's very definitely possible we could. But it's up to you. The way I look at it is this. Yeah, I just noticed here, Joe goes, the funny thing is, I used to play guitar and have long hair and write my own guitar tablature in two hard binders. Still have the tablature. Surely I can write my own book. You absolutely can. I mean, right off the top of my head, just a thought. Okay, but if you're writing, you take a story, like, for instance, take a kid, okay, start him off on a street corner, and all he's doing is humming to himself. Maybe he's humming to himself to start with. He's just sitting on the corner, and then he starts tapping on the sidewalk. Now you can run this any number of ways, but eventually you can work in what you went through as a kid and what this kid is going through as he gets to the point of actually taking up guitar, teaching himself how to play it, getting better and better known until he ends up doing something like Mick Jagger did, or like Gene Simmons. Goes from not knowing jack to being an international superstar. Okay, your books may do the same thing. Now, I've already talked to a couple of people have talked to me about wanting to turn the Yldrbac Chronicles into a movie. And here's the thing. I told them flat out, Number one, until I've got the third book finished, I'm not touching the movie concept. And much more importantly, I'm not footing the bill for it. Okay, that's just the reality. Absolutely there, Philip. To thine own self be true is actually, if I recall, it's a variation on a pagan belief structure. Okay, that basically says harm none. Okay, the to thine own self be true is also a variation on karmic law. Be true to yourself first. Okay, this is one of the things we have to look at. Okay, because one of the factors here is if you're doing something to somebody or treating somebody in a way that you would not personally like to be treated, then it's time to seriously consider not doing that. Okay, it's just that simple. Okay, but there are so many different ways that you can run down the line of writing a book. That was just one option, Joe. You've got an idea of your own. I'd lay odds you already had an idea in your head. And I'm telling you, run with it. Depending on how long it takes you to take it. And the best I can tell you is when I figure out how to get things done properly. Okay, once I've got it running smoothly on my end, I will immediately be opening the doors and saying, okay, if you've got a book, this is what it's going to cost to get it done as is. If you require it edited, it's going to cost a little more. That's just the reality. Okay, and I can't give you numbers on that yet because I just don't know. Okay, but what I do know is, and there's an old saying that goes, everybody has a book in them. Okay, I've seen people write books on tragedy, on the way they dealt with heartache. Well, who am I to say whether that's a good book? Okay, I mean, you look at this. Okay, this particular book. There are a staggering number of people that have written self-help books. Okay, that have written self-help books that are extremely good. Okay, so why write this one? Well, because the other people are still looking for answers. And maybe this one has the answer that it has it phrased the way that from your end will make sense. I remember one person that I sold a copy of this to. They wrote me back when they got the book. They read through it and they went, now all the other self-help books I've read make sense. This one was designed for a simple outlook. Okay. So, I mean, when I'm looking at that, that is the big issue I keep looking at is why write it? Well, the reason to write it is because you've got it there and it does potentially leave the world a better place than when you got here. Okay. I met somebody the other day and she never did send me an email. I ran into somebody in the store and she does phenomenal wood burning, just absolutely phenomenal. Okay, unfortunately, she never got back to me, or if she did, I never saw it. So I'll go looking through spam and what have you. I wouldn't bet on her having ever contacted me. Okay, but if your life is not doing precisely what you desire it to do, this is the time to change it. Yeah, Dr. King talked about a book on self-compassion that a close friend who was a rabbi gave him. I have no idea which book Dr. King talked about. Okay, which one he was dealing with. Okay, all I know is that the books that are out there, every book has a reader. Every book has an audience. Okay, and I am so tired myself. This is why I decided that I'm going to open a publishing company that will take anybody's book as long as it fits into the right genre. And, there are certain things, obviously. I'll take a look at them and go, okay, what are we dealing with? Okay. And if they fit into a genre that I am accepting, then absolutely, I will put it to print. I'm not going to go, oh, it's not long enough, it's not written well enough. I'm just going to say, you desire it written, let's get it done. Because I will tell you, the feeling of getting a project accomplished, especially in the way of writing a book, creating a picture, a painting, a carving, whatever, okay, making a handmade gift, okay, that is physically, it is your creativity being made manifest. There is very little that compares to it. Okay, I found it amazingly enough in my eyes that cooking a proper meal has its own reward as well. Okay, and this is why I say it is time, not tomorrow, not tonight, now, to start changing your life to what you feel is a better world. This little figure that I'm working on here, I keep putting him down because I gotta let the paint dry. Okay. So from that end, I am changing things as I go along because frankly, in my eyes, it's necessary. Now that should be cashmere. And then we go over here and we grab a neat little toothpick. Okay, because by doing this, what I'm actually doing here is I'm taking little steps at a time to get this figure completed. Okay. Where are we here? Joe goes, I'm only 43. All I have to do is go online and look at electric guitar, strings, picks, and amplifier, because I still have the desire to do that too. Well, Joe, you just laid yourself a goal. Okay, you're only 43. You could have easily another 40, 50 years. You're not even halfway through your life. Okay, unless you do something really silly, like, skydive without a parachute, that's going to cause a problem. Or play live action Frogger. Now, for those of you that don't know what Frogger is, well, you're young. But live action Frogger is a game that we used to play all the time. Okay, and from what I've seen in the pictures, in Mexico they do that all the time too. Like I've seen video coverage of masses of people going across one lane of traffic at a time, and the traffic doesn't stop. Now, I don't know about you, but this is a bit dicey from my end. I played guitar when I was a kid. There is no way I would bother picking it up at this point, simply because of one little detail. Okay, my left hand does not respond well enough for me to really have control over it just yet. And I got too many other things I'm working on to worry too much about it. Okay, now again, this is just an issue, and this is why I say we take a look at the way your world is and go, are you content? If not, it's time to start changing things. So I'm looking at this going, I've got a figure here that I desire to have finished. Well, the only way it's going to get finished is if I take the time to actually make it happen. Put the effort into it. The reality is, success in changing your life is done in a very simple fashion. Belief plus focused effort equals success. Okay. Neat thing is, I'm actually writing a book. One of the books I'm working on is a book on the actual formula for success in any endeavor. Okay. And it's a little bit more in depth than belief plus focused effort. Okay. But we have to remember, no matter what project you're working on, no matter what goal, what change you have in mind for your own life, you're the one that's going to have to get up and do it. And by the way, if thinking about doing something were as effective as doing it or were as powerful as doing it, I'd already be a multi-quadrillionaire. and the world would not be suffering from famine at all. Because from my standpoint, it's pretty cut and dried how to go about doing that. But obviously, I've thought about being a millionaire. I mean, realistically, who hasn't? And by the way, since money is not the root of all evil, okay, having a whole pile of it just simply means I've got money that I can move around with. Okay, not that it makes me better than anybody, not that it makes me any worse than anybody. The amount of money in your pocket, the amount of material stuff you have, has nothing to do with your value as an individual. Although, sadly, way too many people are taught that it does. Okay, I mean, from my standpoint, it's a pretty simple way of looking at things. Okay, I'm not happy with the way the world is running right now, but I just about did choose, about a year ago, I just about chose to turn around and walk away from everything and just shut everybody down. Right? And I got looking at it and going, well, I could do that, but if I shut down, if I close this stream, and I say I'm not doing it, okay, what I'm essentially doing is saying it's okay for people to ignore each other, and I'll just let that happen, and you can suffer as you will. But in my eyes, that makes me part of the problem. Okay, because the one illness that has run rampage over this entire world, it seems, is apathy. Cancer is not the killer. Drugs are not the number one killer. Apathy is the number one killer on this planet. Well, actually, in all fairness, age is the number one killer. Okay, with the amount of stuff going on and the amount of toxins put into the world, okay, we are looking at a world where people are ignoring the obvious. And in all fairness, people are taught to ignore the obvious. So I do encourage you to really take a look at your world and go, are you content with what you're looking at, with the way your life is going? Now, I keep putting that down. Of course, I can't see the writing, only that it came up. Okay. But I look at it this way. You have a life in your possession right now. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to simply hide from the world and just go, I hope it'll all go away? Like I told somebody today, if the world is going to blow up in a nuclear holocaust, would somebody be kind enough to pass my address on to the people in charge and go, there's his house. Drop it right there, because I don't feel like picking this one up again. Okay. I lived through Pompeii. I lived through the Exodus from Egypt. I lived through Pompeii. I survived the Great Flood. And by the way, with the Great Flood, the Ark wasn't the only boat. It was just the biggest. Okay. But if you think about the practicality of it, had the Ark and Noah and his family been the only people that survived, you would be walking around. Humans would not all look like this. Genetically, we've already proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that if people are too closely related to each other, there are birth defects that happen. And in case you hadn't noticed, the massive majority of people do not have 3 eyes, 4 legs, and a nose sticking out of their back left pocket. Okay, they just don't. Okay, so we can safely assume that it was not just 5 members of the family that survived, because genetically it doesn't work that way. Honestly, yes. The problem, and the reality of it is that it wasn't just the little boats. People were grabbing boxes. They were grabbing, a part of a house, a panel from a roof. Sometimes it was just a log. Where the problem came in was the length of time they had no food and or water. Okay, and of course the sharks running around in the water at the time didn't really help survival rates. So I mean, when you look at that, all of these great disasters that they say these people survived, the thing you got to remember is, yeah, those people did survive, but they weren't the only ones. Rest assured, when we take a look back at that particular book, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, regardless of where it comes from, okay, they talk about 3 people getting out of the house. Well, technically, they talk about 4. It wasn't only one access point that was available. Okay, the reality is more people survived than what they're telling you. But even in today's world, okay, you take a look at that massive tragedy a few years back, 2001, I think, which, by the way, sad to say, dates and I in this lifetime don't work that well. Okay, but when the Twin Towers came down, some people survived. Okay, now we can focus on the ones that died. We absolutely can, and my condolences to everybody that lost somebody there. And for that matter, my condolences to the ones that got trapped on the other side after they died. Okay, but the reality is that we also have the people that survived. When you take a look at a school shooting, we have horrendous death, we've got massive loss, but there are people that survived it. And it's the survivors we have to look at. Right today, everybody that's died in the past, okay, and do understand I've lost my fair share of family. Well, technically I didn't lose them. I know where they are. Okay, but I cannot do a thing for them. They're done with this world. I can, however, do something with their memory, something with the messages that they left me with or the lessons they left me with. And I can focus on helping the ones of us that got left behind. They're still here. Okay, to that end, okay, I know of some people where an estate comes in, and instead of hanging on to it all themselves, they turn around and help other family members with it. And then you got the family that goes, oh, you shouldn't give your estate away. Well, it's not called giving it away if you're investing it in somebody else's future. It may be terminating your income at that point, but it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong by any functional stretch. So I look at the world and go, okay, how am I going to deal with this? Well, I'll tell you, my way of dealing with this world is simple. Everything, what do I got here? I'll be just going, that's another thing I say when people say, what happened to all the animals, dinosaurs, humans, feeding frenzy? And in all fairness, you're not that far off. Okay, a staggering number of animals drowned. Okay, they really did. And again, because we are dealing with so much damage, okay, you take all these animals, and you got to remember the other thing here. When Pompeii blew, when Krakatoa went off, I was in Pompeii at the time. Actually, in all fairness, I was in the fields outside of it. And the shockwave that happened when Krakatoa went off is nothing like, the only people that can comprehend it really are the ones that were close by and not caught in the primary blast of Mount St. Helens. Okay, the shockwave that came through the air when that volcano went was mind-numbing. Okay, I'll tell you, it was a lot more nerve-numbing when the lava hit. Joe's I got a question. Is it right for a man to be engaged to a woman with a kid that isn't his? Joe, number one, the short answer is absolutely. Okay, absolutely it is. Now, there's a number of different philosophies around it, but if you're willing to deal with somebody, now understand, this is my opinion. There are those that will tell you, oh, if you believe in this religion, you can't even get divorced and still be accepted by God, which really catches my attention when you go, God loves everybody. I don't know, I lost something there. If somebody you're interested in has a child, okay, there are some steps to take to make sure the transition is solid, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with getting engaged to somebody that has a child. In my opinion, that is just a simple, straightforward That's part of the package. You had a past before a woman came into your life. Okay, so did she. Now, the sad part about it is when a set of parents, when male and female get together, the male can walk away. Period. The second pregnancy happens, there is no metabolic modification. The woman doesn't have that option. Her body changes and her connection to the child is right there. But if you're willing to take on, if you're willing to connect with a woman and you fall in love with her, absolutely get engaged to her, get married to her. Okay, what you do as far as whether you legally adopt the child or not, that becomes an issue between you and her. Okay, but is it right or is it acceptable, for a man to be engaged to a woman with a kid that isn't his? Absolutely. Okay. So from that, do with that what you will. Okay, my personal opinion is there is one added bonus of getting engaged to a woman that has a child. Okay, if you haven't got a child of your own, it's a nice way to cut to the chase. Yes, just understand, like the woman will have her baggage, you'll have yours, the kid will have his. Okay, but communication is the key to making all of that transition happen. Okay, so I do hope that helps. I'm a firm believer that, I know of one woman in particular. She had 5 children by 3 different parents and by 3 different fathers. And she ended up finding a guy that not only did he take her on as a girlfriend, he turned around, got engaged to her, married her, and subsequently legally adopted all 5 of the children. So can it be done and does it work? The answer is yes. Okay. But it's like everything. It requires effort. Okay, and that's just something you got to keep in mind. It's not something that just happens. We have to realize that if you're going to make your world a different world than what it is, there are shortcuts to it, as it were. Okay, but absolutely, in my opinion, there is absolutely nothing wrong with having a child, or rather with marrying somebody, getting engaged to them when they've got a kid that isn't yours. Absolutely nothing wrong with it at all, in my opinion. And frankly, I've seen lots of relationships where that has worked extremely well. And all you got to remember is it really depends not so much on what other people think as what you feel. Okay, do understand, no matter what the relationship is, there's going to be work involved in getting it to work. And it's not just work on your part. Okay, relationships require work on both parties' part. But is it something that can work quite nicely? Certainly. Who said anything about I don't know who it was that came up with the idea that you have to father or you have to mother, give birth to your own child, to the child you raise. I will tell you this. My parents adopted a child. My little sister was adopted. But she was always treated she was always referred to as our sister, not as our adopted sister. And most parents that end up in a melded, what they call a melded family, what happens is they go, this is my son. They don't go, this is my son by another father. Okay. It just doesn't work that way. And I'm sure you can understand how off kilter that would seem. So you can't read when I've got that. Yeah, that's absolutely no problem at all. The best I can tell you is if he's treating her right, and if they're treating each other right, you can bet the child will be taken care of. Okay. And absolutely, regardless of the background that he comes from, you know, this is going to sound really presumptuous on my part, but what the heck? Wish him the best of luck with it. It's an absolute godsend. I'll tell you the one advantage, the one thing you don't get the opportunity of doing if you father the child yourself. As a father, you get to guide what the child goes through. But that's where it is. When you're taking on somebody else's child and taking them to your heart and raising them from there, you're giving them a chance to see a world that is better than the one that fell apart on them. At least I sure hope it is. Okay. I've seen relationships where what happens is the new parent comes in and proves to be an absolute nightmare. But I'm betting dollars to donuts, knowing you there, Joe. I'm betting dollars to donuts if this is a friend of yours, there is no way he's going to treat the kids poorly. So absolutely, it's an excellent thing to do. Not only does he get to bring joy in, does she get to bring joy into his life, but they get to bring joy into the kid's life and really make a massive difference. And this is just one of those aspects. So I do hope that helps. The way I look at it, this world is way too full of hatred, way too full of greed, debauchery, stupidity, that it really is nice to hear somebody's got somebody that they're with that has a partner, that has a munchkin. Because then not only are we changing a set of adults, they are modifying the future. They are setting things in motion to actually make the world a better place for the coming generation. This is just one of those things that we have and that it would be wise to look at. What kind of an impact are you actually going to manage to make? And that's just the way I look at it. Now, I don't know if that's a good way or a bad way. Somebody else gets to figure that out. So I do hope that helps. I take a look at the way the world is and I go, okay, how am I going to make this a better world? Okay, now I will tell you this. This figure I'm working on here is not going to do a whole lot for the world. Okay. It does do a fair chunk in the way of giving me something to sidetrack myself with so that I don't have to worry about certain aspects. But is it going to make a lot of difference to the world at large? Probably not. The novels I'm writing, on the other hand, may provide somebody with a period of enjoyment to release their own stress. Okay. When it comes to the self-help books, those I know for an absolute fact. And I say fact because I've sold several hundred copies already of Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. Those ones I know have a positive impact on people's lives because I've had feedback from people telling me so. Okay. And this is just one of those little aspects that we look at going, what can I do to make this world even a slightly better place for somebody? Okay. It will take time. It will take effort. But, let's say it's going to take a year's worth of effort to change an aspect of your life. Okay. If you leave it for 6 months, it's still going to be a year down the road to make that effort happen. So is there any point in postponing it any further? In my opinion, not that I've seen. This is just one of those neat little things that I look at going, where is the rationality behind waiting? And of course, I was actually told by one individual that I would get things accomplished a lot faster if I would cut down on the number I was working on at one time. And there is a certain amount of absolute logic there. Sad to say, I never got very good at only doing one thing at a time. So I will see how that pans out. But I am doing what I can to make things change. Now, I do have a question for you. Okay, for all of you, quite frankly. You know, and that's the thing, Philip. There are always people looking for different stories, and there's a staggering number. There is a staggering number of really good undiscovered authors out there, undiscovered painters that have a phenomenal capacity to look at the world in a different light. Yeah, I should probably put that information up there, but I've got to do it piece at a time. So I will finish this little piece of the foot off. And again, this is just aspects of this particular figure that I'm working on. We pick this guy up. Whoa, that was close. Put him there to dry for a minute. Where did my water? There we are. Now, what do we got? Oh, I was going to look at something here. The day is going by. This is one of the reasons I like occupying myself. Okay, like I'm looking at the way the room is going, and there's a lot of interaction on the room still. Okay, and this is why I say, for pity's sakes, if you've got a question, absolutely come right out and ask. But please put it in all caps, because when you put it in all caps, you can wave your hand. That's all caps does. Is it says, hey, I've got a question for you. Would you mind answering it? I will do my best. If you look at the list of contacts below this video, you'll find a whole pile of ways of getting a hold of me. Okay. And I do my best to get back in touch with people when they make that effort. Now, let us see if I can figure this out. Now this, let's take that and see if it'll pick the whole thing up or if I've got to break it a little more. If I take that one and put it here, let me go paste that. Nope, that's too big. Oh, okay, so we just ignore that. And we do it here. And let's cut that there. And whoa, that was wrong. We do this and we go copy and see if that'll pick it up. Yep. So we send that. This is the basics behind the birth of the wolf pack. Okay. I just got to do it in 4 sections, it looks like. Okay. Because the way I figure it, you guys are not going to, like, nobody is going to understand it until I start making it visible. Okay. So that's the reality behind that. Now let's see if this will pick this part up. And we go copy that. This is working. It's just a bit more tedious than I would have liked. But hey, work with what you got. Nope, can't do that. So we take that and put that there. And we just copy it off a piece at a time. And paste that in. And this way I can get the whole 9 yards out. This is what I'll be posting elsewhere. Whoops, what'd I do? I don't know how I did that. There we go. I love when I'm trying to do something that doesn't add up properly. Not really, but it sounds good. This is literally what I will be posting elsewhere, but it sets things in motion for me. Because like I told my buddy today, if I don't actually make this visible, nobody's going to know about it. But that's the birth of the Wolfpack. I've got, like I said, I've got 7 books out. And let's go back up here. Nope, not on that one. Where's the other one? Take a look at that one. And this is Shadow. Where are we? This is the site. This is Shadow and Son site that he just asked me earlier this evening if I'd be willing to come online and come on his show and discuss some of the painting techniques. Okay, so absolutely keep an eye open for it. I'm sure Shadow will be telling you, and I certainly will, as soon as I know when things are happening. But this is what I mean by it's really time from our stand from what do we got here? I missed something here. Joe said something apparently. That's why. The reality of the world is this. We can concentrate on what's gone wrong. We can absolutely focus on that if we'd like. Personally, I'm tired of looking at what's gone wrong. From my standpoint, it's become more an issue of where do we go from here? How do we stop the nosedive? And I know for an absolute certainty, I know this in my own heart, that working together, we can change the way the world is going. It's not just the bigwigs. The bigwigs, the people that are supposedly at the top, the elites, the super rich, etc. I will tell you, back in 2003, back in 2003, we had a major fire in this city. Okay. Roughly, there was about 100,000, 120,000 people in Cologne at the time. Okay. And we ended up evacuating a third of the city. But when we were evacuating, because it was on the whole dang thing was on fire. Well, a major chunk of it. But what we found was the people that had a lot of money were absolutely lost. They didn't know how to cope. The ones that didn't have a lot of money were kicking their own doors open and going, look, I got a couch you can stay on until the fire goes. Right? And then we'll work it out from there. Well, I will tell you, the first thing I asked when that happened, was who are really the wealthy people? The people that were up on the wealthy part of the city that lost so much material stuff, or the people that were sitting around. Oh, sorry, Philip, and you're still in the house. Okay. I missed this one there, Philip. You've been dealing with insomnia. Do you have any good tricks for sleeping? And the answer is yes. Okay, and none of them involve medication, in all fairness. Okay, some people have used something called melatonin to help them get there. Okay, one thing that has helped immensely, or used to help my children do it, was get lavender drops. Put them on your pillow. It will help knock you out. Now, it won't keep you asleep, but it will help bring you into a sleep state to start with. Okay. I will tell you, laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and counting sheep for me never worked. Because I kept getting frustrated. I'd sit there trying to count sheep. And I'd be counting the sheep, and then I'd lose track. And then I'd have to start over counting the sheep again. And then it was just my luck. Some genius let a wolf into the sheep's pen. And all of a sudden I've got no way of keeping track of the sheep because they're all in a panic. Now try counting sheep going over a fence like we were taught when we were kids. Count the sheep jumping over the fence. Put a wolf behind them. They're all going over the fence at the same time. But these are things that work. For me personally, I literally will lay down on the bed. If I'm having actual trouble sleeping, I lay down on the bed and, in a comfortable position, and I'll feel for my heart to beat. You don't put your hand on your throat or on your wrist. You just concentrate, turn your attention in to your heart itself. Okay. And you feel that heartbeat. And you concentrate on it so that what you're doing is you're tracking the heartbeat out as far as you can in your body. Okay. That method of relaxation does have a tendency of working for a lot of people. If you haven't given it a shot, do that and see what works. Okay. I don't guarantee anything works for anybody. My method, my system has been absolutely screwy. The only thing I can tell you about things that work for many, is the tools in this particular book have worked in regards to turning your life around. Well, turning other people's lives around, my own included. Okay, but when I look at that, let us see. I'm just curious here. Just refreshing my overhead screen here to see what's going on. Yeah, and there we have absolutely, and just stand there staring at it. That's always good. Okay, and again, considering how close we are here, if you like the stream, absolutely do give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Okay, and absolutely, if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. Okay, I'm sitting right now at 407 subscribers, so I'm, over 40% of the way to my goal for the end of the year. And we're only in the middle of February. This is actually, for me, really good news. But I could really use your help to get there. Because when I get to the 1,000, that's apparently when YouTube starts paying a little bit of money. I'm not expecting to get rich off any of it. Okay, my hope, my focus is on getting the books written and getting them moving. Okay, to that end, I'm getting things organized to make it happen. And tomorrow, well, I might do it tonight as far as looking for places, but tonight I will be starting to post on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter about the books that I've got. That's the method I use, Philip. Okay, I have found, and for me, if something works for me, it usually can work for somebody else. If we're talking about mind over body. But the one thing that I never gauge on is how well medication is going to work on anybody. Okay, I take a look at most medication going, good luck with that. My son came down with a cold today. And I went looking to get neocitrin, which is what we usually work with. Unfortunately, you can't get it in the city right now. Fortunately, the last time we got hit with a situation, a friend of mine actually showed me how to make, if you will, homemade neocitrin. Philip goes, well, what do we got? Philip's just asking, where do we go from here? Chaos or Community is a 1967 book by Nobel Peace Prize laureate, the social justice campaigner Martin Luther King Jr., advocating for human rights and a sense of hope. And, he was on the absolute right track. Okay. And the thing that got screwed up with it is Martin Luther King was not talking about the white people, the black people, the Orientals. Martin Luther King, the message I got from him, from his broadcast and his push, okay, was everybody. Okay, we've got to work together. We've got to see each other as equals. This is the important factor we have to look at. Yeah, Philip is just adding. It was his fourth and last book, not a talk title. No, it really wasn't. It was not just the thing you got to remember with Martin Luther King. Okay, that was the way he looked at the world. It wasn't a campaign thing. It was just him. Okay, in that respect, and I'm by no means in the caliber of him. Quite frankly, my walking out in public, I figure I get more than 25 people in public, I've got a bit of an issue. So this works really well. Okay, but I've got the same philosophy that he did as far as that goes. This is the way I look at the world. This is not the way to tell you, you look at the world this way, I'm going to do my own thing and shaft everybody I can. That just doesn't work that well for me. But the thing we have to look at here is we are at a turning point. Okay. The turning point we are at is, are you going to continue your life on the path it's on? Are you going to continue focusing on how bad the world can get, on the damage that we could be walking into? Or are you going to turn around and go, how can I make this world a better place for when I leave as compared to when I got here? Now, my personal goal is to leave it as a better place. Okay, to leave it in better shape. The entire saga that I'm in, the entire Yldrbacian saga, starts with the beginning of time, goes through its trials and tribulations, there's ups and downs, but ends back at a paradise, back at all of that horror, all of that terror behind us, and looking to move forward. Okay, now there's a whole lot more I could go into there. And one of these days I'll go on a talk show with somebody, a talk show, a live chat, and actually talk about the entire saga and how it goes about. Okay, but for the time being, you have a life. Your life is in a certain state of array. Whether it's array or disarray, that's for you to decide. But the other thing you have to decide that would be wise to look at is, are you content with the way your world is right now? Are you happy with the way things are? If the answer is yes, absolutely stay on the path you're on. But I strongly urge you, if you are in the habit of going to listen to somebody that tells you, fear everything, be afraid, be seriously afraid, okay, because the world is going to end. Well, I have missed out on the world ending so many times when people have told me, well, the world's ending next year and next month. I'm like, why am I the last person to find out the world's ending? I don't even have time to get a change of address in. So with this in mind, take a look at your world. Okay, it is time for your world to change. That's an excellent thing. Phil's just saying that, there were a few months when having his talks and sermons on was the only way I could get anxiety low enough to sleep. And whatever works. Absolutely. That gets your anxiety low. It was a great message that he carried. Okay, it really was. But it got skewed somewhere along the way. Same as the message that came to most of the spiritual guidelines. Most of the religions started off with a message that was full of hope, full of dreams, full of goodwill in the future. And somebody skewed it sideways to relegate it to only a small group of people. And I'm telling you, there's more than 8 billion people on this planet. And if we count the animals and plants and minerals and what have you, we are way over that count. But just in humans, we have over 8 billion, people that are all on this same planet. Okay, it is time for us to really start unifying the world and not finding ways to segregate it. Okay, Lord knows there's all sorts of ways that we can start looking at each other and go, oh, you're different than I am. Okay, I will tell you, every individual is absolutely unique. Yes, people follow similar patterns because we are being taught the same ideas. Now, I'm happy to say I fortunately failed on a lot of those lessons, not the least of which was growing up colorblind. You had to be awfully white or awfully black for me to actually recognize you as either color. You know, the nice part about it is in today's world, yeah, I can see the different colors, I can see the different tones now, but I still see everybody as the same color. Okay, you're all colored human. Now, yes, for those of you that are of that mindset, there are hybrid, there are non-humans out there. Okay, there are hybrids, there are ones that are full-blooded, not human. But the massive majority of people are human. Okay, and even with the ones that aren't, if they look human, the odds are you all put your pants on one leg at a time. Okay, somebody mentioned the other day there was a time when they had to actually put their pants on two legs at a time because they were too overweight to get the pants on otherwise. Which, been there, done that. Nope, not quite. I was at a point where I couldn't cross one leg over the other on my knee. Okay, because it just physically wouldn't go there. You know, but we are hitting the 2-hour mark here, people. With that in mind, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you sharing your time with me. Okay, this isn't about me. This is about us and all of us working together to make this a better world for virtually everybody. Christine, didn't see you come in earlier. Glad you could join us. I will be back again tomorrow. But until then, do take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.